Program, the merchants, did I miss anybody? Our town planner. I want to thank you all for coming tonight to hear a very impressive woman named Peg Barringer, who did a great study of market assessment really of downtown Wakefield, working with the merchants, working with people at town hall and everything. So I want to thank Peg for coming back. I promise she'd be back. She's so busy. It took us a little while to get her here, but we're very happy to have her here. And a little bit about Peg before she starts. Peg is the partner and founder of Finepoint Associates, which is out of Brookline, which is a Massachusetts-based consulting firm with clients throughout the United States. In fact, she has worked with over 200 communities across the country, doing really similar to what she's doing here for us in Wakefield. She has 25 years of experience, has degrees from Syracuse. Being from Georgetown, I'm going to let that go anyway. Not many people know that joke, I guess. University of Rhode Island. She's also a teacher or an adjunct professor for 25 years, teaching urban policy at Tufts University. And she's been a joy to work with throughout this whole experience. And if you haven't read her report, I think after tonight you'll be enticed to read it. If you have read it, you'll be enticed to read it again because there's some great stuff in there. So I'm going to turn this over to Peg. We have Selectman Denocco and Selectman May here this evening. Thank you. Peg.
Thank you. I'm going to talk with you from over in this corner, because this is as far as my cord will reach. It's really nice to be here. We worked on this project last fall, so it's been just about a year. So this is an anniversary that we're back. And it was really an effort with the town, the Selectmen, the Wakefield Main Street Association, the town planning office, and we had a lot of volunteers that collected business information and did a business inventory. We had about 30 people that met with us for several meetings. So it was really a team effort. And I've been asked to come and talk about the findings and the presentation, kind of repeat the presentation that we did about a year ago tonight. And so it's delightful to be back in Wakefield. And I understand that a lot of things have been happening in the last year. So that's great to hear. What our work was all about is we basically were trying to provide foundational research that then would form a foundation that you could take some actions to keep the vibrancy in downtown. So we did a market analysis, we did an analysis of the real estate conditions, the business mix, and then working with our downtown task force, we came up with some key takeaways and suggestions. And so I'd like to talk to you about those three things tonight. We started looking at a market analysis, so we wanted to see where the customers would be likely to come from. And we did an analysis of where the competing commercial facilities were. And part of that was looking at, how far people would come, we thought, to come to downtown Wakefield, and what else was available for people to go to. And so you can take a look at that map, see if my cursor is working. The second ring is a 2-mile radius. And you can see that there's not too much competition inside of 2 miles, but outside of 2 miles there seems to be more competition, and outside of 3 there's extremely amount of competition. So from that, and also from looking at the drive times, how far people would have to come to get, and what would be the travel times, what we settled on was that the primary trade area is probably about a 2-mile radius from downtown, the red circle, and there's probably also a secondary trade area, meaning there's some opportunity to draw sales from that green dotted line, but not as much as inside of the primary trade area. So once we have the trade area, we could look at some of the demographics and expenditure information for who lived in those areas. And so what you can see here is that we've got some good news. The market is pretty sizable. There's 40,000 people inside of that primary trade area, and there's 86,000 people in the secondary trade area. And the other piece of good news is that the market is growing. And so it looks like, from the projections we were able to find, is that it's growing about 1% a year, and that's a little bit faster than Massachusetts overall. So the market is pretty sizable and the market is growing. We also looked at characteristics, and the predominantly middle to upper income, well-educated. So the median household income in the primary trade area is $86,000, and a little bit higher in trade area 2, $88,000. And 43% of the households are over $100,000. So that's something that retailers often zero in on, what percentage of the population is over 100,000. Restaurants look at what part of the population is over 75,000, because it just means that there's a larger group that they might be targeting. The education level is a little bit higher than Massachusetts overall. So 52% of the trade area residents have at least an associate's degree. That's a little bit higher than Massachusetts. It's a lot higher than the United States overall. And when it comes to how these people spend their money, we looked at the primary trade area, and it looks like there's about $541 million a year spent on retail and restaurants. And from doing a sales leakage analysis, it looks like inside of that primary trade area, the businesses are capturing around 60% of it. So 40% is going outside of the 2-mile trade area. And then when we looked at the 3-mile trade area, it's about 70-30. So 70% of the businesses inside are capturing, businesses inside are capturing around 70%, and about 30% is leaking out. And then after the 3-mile, it drastically drops. So when we looked at sales leakage, it looked like there was leakage in just about every category except for health and personal care stores, drugstores, and other kinds of personal care stores. Just to give you an example, and there's a lot more information in the report, but I just wanted to hit some highlights for you tonight. An example of the sales leakage, one of the ones up there we could take a look at, there's $23 million in restaurant sales that's leaking outside of the primary trade area. So that means the residents are spending at least $23 million outside of the trade area. And you'd never expect to capture all of the restaurant sales, because people are always gonna go out to restaurants near where they work or where their friends live, or destination restaurants. But it looks, it gives it some opportunity. So it shows that there might be some opportunity to capture some additional restaurant sales here. And then the other market segments that we looked at, there's several actually. So the employees of area businesses, they're here, they increase the daytime population. They might be here to make a meal purchase or other purchases before or after work. And then there's several market segments that are attracted to nearby attractions or events. So people that are coming to the lake for recreation or for related events, the guests of the Sheraton Hotel, the users of BB Library. So one of the things that when we were working on this study, we found out the library told us they have 800 visitors a year, and 20% of them are outside of the town of Wakefield. So that's just an example of people are coming in, and they're going to attractions that are in or near downtown, and it's an opportunity possibly for them to visit restaurants or visit retail. Attendees of special events at the Civic Center or other locations, and users of the Galvin Middle School athletic fields or theater. And when we were working together as a team, a lot of the task force members, we got together and we talked about a lot of different possible ways to capture some of those market segments that are in the report. The second piece that we looked at in our study was real estate conditions and business conditions, business mix in downtown. And one of the things that was striking is the amount of space and the amount of commercial units were there. So there's 321 commercial units and over 920,000 square feet. And just to put that in perspective, that's a little bit bigger than Market Street, Linfield, to give you an idea, and it's about only 25% less than the Burlington Mall. So there's really a fair amount of commercial space there. There is a lot of vacant space. There's more vacant space than we would like, but it looks like about 7% of the space, and that still compares pretty favorably to the national average. The national average for retail is about 9% and office about 12%. And so in downtown Wakefield, you have a mixture of retail and office. So the vacancy rate, even though it looks, it's very visible, it's still standing up, about to the national average. when we analyzed downtown, we saw it in sort of 3 different segments: the Albion North Avenue area, the Junction Avenue, and then the Main Street core. And so a lot of our analysis in the report kind of section out those 3 and look at those 3 areas. This chart just shows you where some of the larger spaces are, so the largest businesses in town. And then the chart on the right talks about your top 10 most frequently found tenants. So personal care and laundry tops the list. There's 43 businesses in this category, so there's a lot of businesses in this category. There's also a lot of eating and drinking establishments, so Wakefield is very lucky to have a good variety of restaurants and several restaurants in downtown. And then you can see the other mix of professional, scientific, finance, etc. I'm putting up here sort of a sample of some of the tenants, old favorites like Farmland, an interesting women's boutique Rada, standards like the hardware store, several interesting restaurants in downtown, from, Zuzu's to Cravings and Creations. A lot of nail salons, hair salons, personal care, and also financial services and other professional services. And one of the things that was interesting when we compiled the inventory and were working with our downtown task force members is to just see the listing of businesses categorized as if they were in a shopping mall, and seeing the depth of variety that you have in a lot of categories. It's not so apparent when you drive down the street or walk down the street all of the things that are there. We did look at this mix compared to other downtowns. We also compared it to typical shopping centers and to the Market Street in Linfield. And a couple of things that came out of that was that, see those yellow, the yellow bars? The yellow bars are personal services and convenience goods. And so downtown Wakefield has a larger percentage of personal services and convenience goods than other downtowns and then Market Street. And it has a smaller percentage of comparison goods. Those are the red bars. And so that was one of the things that kind of came out of this. We also found that compared to other downtowns, Wakefield had less healthcare establishments, less professional services, like technical and engineering services. And some of the key takeaways and suggestions. And before I even start, I want to remind you that we did this a year ago. So it's kind of nice to look back on these. And when I was preparing for tonight, I was refreshing and looking at the suggestions and some of the things that came out of the study. And then I was looking at what's happened in Wakefield over the last year. And it was nice to see that a lot of things have happened. So a lot of the things that I'm going to mention in these key takeaways and suggestions, initiatives are already underway because a lot of things have taken off. So one of the findings that we came up with from the report, Wakefield seems to be a charming town center, many attractive historic buildings with a really walkable layout and a lovely common. And what was kind of striking to me is that this kind of layout is exactly what the new lifestyle center developers are trying to mimic. So people are realizing that people enjoy shopping and socializing in this kind of environment. And so now the new lifestyle developers, they are mimicking this town center feel with parking in front of the stores, similar to Wakefield already has. So this is Market Street in Linfield on the left, and the downtown Wakefield on the right. And I think they really have striking similarities. The physicality is very similar. This is Market Street in Linfield, and this is Wakefield. Market Street and Wakefield. Very similar pedestrian scale, a lot of the same aesthetic elements, walkability. Downtown Wakefield is even more walkable. And so I just thought that was kind of interesting, is that we see these lifestyle center developers really mimicking downtowns, town centers like we used to have. I think another thing to keep in mind is that consumers today are really looking for experiential shopping socializing and recreating. They want a place where they can find something to eat, where they can see a cultural event, where they can find some entertainment options. And I think Wakefield is positioned to be able to be that kind of social location for people. And one of the things I think is key is that not to think about downtown as just a shopping place, but really a social place. You know, it should be attractive and comfortable and have opportunities for people to recreate and socialize. And the premise here is if people are comfortable and if they're coming to socialize, they'll stay longer and then they'll spend more. And that the town center will have multi-function for them. You know, there should be places for people to gather, you know, social gathering spots, opportunities that they can accommodate activities, performers, vendors, and the streetscape should be very inviting to stroll and sit and hang out. And the most successful downtowns are the ones that have a great interface between what's happening inside the businesses and the street. So lots of large open windows that people can see in, streets, sidewalk dining or street side dining, you know, so there's a lot of vibrancy that come into these kind of districts. And a lot of that is already happening in Wakefield. You've got some nice restaurants, big windows, outdoor dining, and probably you want to look at even trying to increase that more and adding more vitality with these kind of elements. One of the things I didn't have in my presentation when we talked last year, I just thought I'd emphasize this whole idea of experiences, because this is really the direction that we're going in a lot of commercial areas. Retail is always going to have an inherent competition with the internet. And so what we're seeing downtowns and commercial centers focusing on is more recreation, experiences, things to do, eating, and even the retail is more experiential. And so this is the kind of stuff that we're seeing popping up in a lot of commercial districts, you know, paint bars and, you know, paint your pet projects and clay rooms and bowling and exercises and you know, entertainment and escape rooms. I don't know if there are any people familiar with escape rooms. Yes, no? I went to my first escape room a few weeks ago in a commercial district. They had taken an old jail cell in the basement, turned it into an escape room, and it's a whole experience that you go through. They lock you up and you try to get out. It's like a game. And that's popping up all over the place, very popular with millennials. And so I just thought, you know, I would kind of pull some of this out to have you think about, because I think a lot of our commercial space, it might be difficult to fill it all up with retail. And I think we have to think beyond traditional retailers and think about recreation and social activities and experiences. And especially when you think about the future of our downtowns, I think we have to look at who's coming up, who's going to be the customers, and looking at the younger generation and the millennials, the 18 to 34-year-olds, and how they live their life and how they shop and dine and recreate. And these are some of those kind of activities. A couple of things that came out of our work from last year is that it's important to activate your public spaces and your activity venues as much as possible. And you've got some beautiful venues here in Wakefield, you know, a great library and beautiful civic center and a number of other venues. And also, as you increase the programming, try very hard to strengthen the economic links between the businesses and the programming, so that when you're having events or activities, that there also is being planned and done in a way that the businesses in downtown are benefiting from that. And then the other thing that we talked about last year was continuing efforts to explore possibilities to create an arts and culture venue. And it's really nice to see that you've done that. So now the Albion Cultural Exchange is up and going and operating, and there is another cultural venue and the Arts Collaborative of Wakefield. So that was really, you know, I'm delighted to see that. And additional programming, you know, that are coming. So a lot of the stuff that we were talking about more entertainment and more experiences and bringing those kind of things down into downtown is already happening. And Amanda Chisholm is here from MAPC, and she's going to talk to you in a few minutes about a new project, which is studying the area to develop an arts corridor. And that's another, you know, kind of a continuation of the work that we did with the task force a year ago. When we did the presentation at the end of the year last year, one of the things we talked about is downtowns that had recurring events. Because I think recurring events that you can plan on, you know it's going to be a first Thursday, it's going to happen once a month, are really important for downtowns, and it creates a relationship with the residents because people can plan on it. And we talked about Jamaica Plain. These are pictures from Jamaica Plain's first Thursday, which started out small, but year after year they've been building on it, and it's really a major event now that's extremely well attended. And it's great to see that now Wakefield has got a first Thursday event. So I know this was your first year. It started in June, and there's been a number of different themes, and I'm sure it will build year after year. So that's great to see that that was happening. And this was a slide that we showed last year at the conclusion of our work, and I just use it as an example of a quirky indigenous event. This is Union Square, and they have the Marshmallow Fluff Festival every year, and because marshmallow fluff was invented there. So it's really an indigenous activity. Nobody else can have a fluff festival, and I think it does a great service to their branding. You know, it really makes them unique. And so I was just going to throw that out there to think about as you think about events. And I know that you've got a lot of events here, the holiday stroll, the Italian festival, right? You can do a lot of nice events, the train show. You know, I think there can always be more. I think that you want to have an activity going on almost all the time, you know, so that people think about, oh, if I want to find something to do, this is where I go. I come to downtown. And you know, when I was thinking about the presentation tonight and I was remembering the Marshmallow Fluff Festival slide, you know, there's some parallels here between Union Square and Wakefield. Because Union Square has got a Main Street organization, and they also have an organization called Union Arts, which is part of their Arts Council. And they work collaboratively, and they're a partnership. And so it just made me think about Wakefield with the Wakefield Main Street and with the Arts Collaborative of Wakefield. And one of the things that I thought I would just show you is that in Union Square, one of the things that they realized was, and you maybe have hit this too, and we see this in a lot of downtowns, organizations can only handle so many events, and you reach capacity, right? You've got your group of volunteers, and how many events can you really put on in a year? And this was just something interesting that they tried in Union Square, and they did it for many years. They would put out what they call a call for producers. And so they would, it was like a request for proposals for groups that wanted to put on cultural events in downtown, or in their case, in their commercial district. And they put out these applications, and people had to come up with the theme. They would have to manage the event, they'd have to manage the vendors, they had to take care of all the activities that go along with these events, but they would put in a proposal, and they had a program where there was a little bit of money that would help fund some of these events. So some of the events didn't require any funding, they just required a venue, and some of the events required a little bit of money. So their grant program was like up to $1,200 for an event. But why they were doing this is they wanted to bring more and different and unique events into the area, but they knew they couldn't manage them all. And I see that in a lot of downtowns, that they get to that point and they reach their capacity. I don't know if you know Turner's Falls, way out, little tiny itty bitty town. They have a tremendous amount of events there. Very artistic town, lots of things going on all the town, and they have an organization called River Culture. And at the beginning, River Culture was putting on all the events, but they quickly, reached their capacity. And they moved over into a system like this where they encouraged other groups to put on events. So then they had a lot of groups that would put on one event a year. But in downtown, it made a lot of events, but one organization didn't have to manage them all. So I just, when I was thinking about it and I was thinking about Union Square, I just thought I would share that with you. One more thing about events. We did a study in Boston a couple of years ago about the economic impact of events in business districts, and we studied 9 business districts. And we looked at everything from festivals, farmers markets, art shows, the August Moon Festival in Chinatown. So we looked at a lot of different organizations and events, And the findings that came out were pretty interesting. We found out that first, the events attract a large number of people. They often attract people that are outside the area. So in this case, a third of the attendees came from another zip code. It attracts customers with disposable income. So when we compared the disposable income of the event attendees to the surrounding population, it was significantly higher. The events increase awareness of local businesses. So one of the things that I thought was interesting is that 37% of the attendees discovered businesses that they didn't know was there. So sometimes events don't create more business for the businesses on that day, but we're hoping to create sort of a connection with businesses and an awareness of businesses that customers will come back to. And we did see that in the events that we looked at, on average, people that were coming to the events patronized 2 businesses during the same day. So on their way to or during or after the event, they at least went to 2 businesses on average. So just a couple of some of the other findings. Downtown Wakefield's got strong demographics and a high density of customers, and so that's something that I think you can use in business recruitment material. 40,000 people live within 2 miles. That's a significant number of people, and average household income over $100,000. That's a good soundbite when you're trying to recruit new businesses to downtown. I think you should capitalize on opportunities presented by all market segments. So we've been talking, we talked a lot about the resident market segment, but also people that are coming in to attend events, that are using the lake, that are coming in or near downtown, that there should be, we should try to figure out how to capitalize on those market segments. And particularly the lake. That was a stunner for me when I came here. If you were to say, one thing that makes you so unique, I don't know any other downtown that has this beautiful of a water feature right there. And the thing is, though, the physical connection and the mental connection needs to be reinforced. When you're at the lake, you don't really feel like you're steps away from downtown. It doesn't seem like there's a connection. And so it seems like perhaps with some physical amenities, you could think about how to strengthen that connection a little bit. Maybe if banners came from downtown all the way to the lake, maybe if there was some other unifying physical or architectural elements. The path on the left is the path from the lake to the core of downtown. So it's an attractive walk. But with the grade, when you're looking up, you don't necessarily know that it's there. The other, possibility is to maybe think about some kiosks, informational kiosks that might be at the lake, and you might find some other places where you might want to look at them. These are like what you might see in a shopping mall, but these are outside in downtown. It just gives information about the downtown and what's there. And if you have those at the lake and you have a lot of lake users, they might be more enticed to come up. I think another finding is there is an abundance of commercial space in downtown Wakefield. You've got a lot of space. And as you are moving forward with revitalization and vibrancy enhancing strategies, you might want to think about creating target nodes or target areas because you want to make sure that you have impact in the activities that you do. So you might want to start with prioritizing. And the other thing is to maybe think about prioritizing certain areas for businesses that have walk-in trade and similar hours. So when you think about a downtown, these kind of businesses are great to have next to each other. A retail shop and a restaurant, because they have a walk-in trade, and you can come from the bookstore and go over to the restaurant. They're open on Saturdays and Sundays, they might be open into the evenings, and their customers help each other. But when you start intertwining with businesses that are not open on the weekends, that might close at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, offices or chiropractor or insurance or contractors or those kind of things, what it does to your downtown is it makes it less leasable. So with some of these spaces, when that space turned over, if it was next to these two things, it would be harder to get a retail tenant back in there. And in downtowns, that sometimes becomes a little bit of a snowball. And so, not that you don't want all these kinds of uses, but you might want to target certain areas where you cluster your walk-in trade businesses, and then you've got other businesses that are more for contractors or offices that have different kinds of businesses. Clustering in critical mass are really integral to successful downtowns, and here you've got some burgeoning clusters, certainly restaurants, entertainment, and recreation, and I think maybe you definitely have a restaurant cluster. But rounding that out with more entertainment and recreation, you've got the lake and you've got a number of other activities that are recreational. Educational services, families and kids, so in downtown, you've got the middle school right there. There's a number of after-school programs, Kid Caso. So you already have families and parents and kids coming to do these things. Maybe that cluster could grow. And cultural institutions. So, those kind of clusters are the first things that come to mind. And some business recruitment efforts, I think they can be informed by comparisons with other downtowns and with other commercial centers. So one of the things, that we already mentioned, Wakefield's got less comparison goods, less healthcare, less professional science and technical. So that might be something to think about as you think about business recruitment. The other thing to think about is we're struggling. Our commercial corridors and our downtowns and business districts are struggling in a lot of areas. And one of the things that can be helpful is multi-channel retailing. And so encouraging multi-channel retailing and recruiting businesses that do multi-channel retailing. And what that is not only do they have a physical bricks and mortar footprint, but they also do e-commerce. And so this is a store from my neighborhood, and it's a very specialty little gifty, arty store, but it does really well because it also has a thriving e-commerce side of it. So it doesn't have to depend on all of its sales coming from walk-in trade. This kind of business requires a lot of foot traffic to stay in business because it's such a specialty, but the fact that they are doing business online as well. And some downtowns we're finding that they're a good place for businesses that want a showroom. They want to have a physical space that people can buy from, and they also act in some ways as a wholesaler. So other people that would buy from them, they do the buying, they showcase it, they have e-commerce, and then they do some wholesaling. And I think that's important to kind of take a look for those opportunities in downtown. Creating a business recruitment brochure. So that's something that we'd recommend. You could, commercial property owners could use it, brokers could use it. When we were working with the task force, we came up with sort of a lot of locational advantages and good things, why do business in downtown Wakefield, good things about the location and the market. So you could highlight your best foot forward. And the other thing that we didn't talk about last time, but when I was preparing for tonight, I was kind of, revisiting Wakefield in a lot of different ways. And it might be something to think about to change the Wakefield or add to the Wakefield website. It focuses on new residents, and there's not really a page for new businesses. So just something to kind of think about, that there would maybe be a page right up front that says new businesses or thinking about locating in Wakefield or something, which has information about how to start a business in Wakefield and who do you have to go to and what do you have to go through, what's the process for permits and whatnot. Maybe something about the town, something about the market and the demographics, things that would be attractive to businesses and that business would want to know. And most importantly, that it just presents a business-friendly environment. So people think about, this is a town that is looking for new businesses. You could also post there specific kinds of businesses that you're looking for downtown. So just another kind of thing to think about. Making consumers more aware of shopping and dining and service options. I think when we were working last year on this, it seemed from our walking around and talking to folks that it wasn't clear to everyone all the services that were actually available in downtown. People that we talked to were continuously saying, we should have downtown, and then they would name something. And I'd say, well, you've got two of those. So I think making people more aware of what's here, and old school still works, business directories and hard copy business directories, and new school also works. So websites or online directories. If you're looking for an example, this is from Natick Center, and I think they have a good example of a website that lists all the businesses in Natick Center. There's downtown apps, so there's lots of ways to communicate the businesses that are here. Because really with an economic development effort, a downtown development effort. We're trying to bring new businesses in, but we're trying to make them be successful, and we're trying to help existing businesses be successful. So part of the task is making sure people know what's here. And we're in the home stretch if you're getting a little bored. A couple more left. You know, I think one of the things, to be vibrant, businesses have to be open, number one. And number two, they have to look open. And so that's just kind of something to think about. And there might be some facades in downtown Wakefield that could be renovated or opened up a little bit, more glass, more transparency, a little bit more attractive. The other thing, regular posted hours and evening hours, at least some evening hours. And you know, I know that you started First Thursday, and that was the beginning of, that's your first Thursday this summer. And I think some of the businesses have stayed open late on Thursdays. And that's, you know, the other community that we talked about, JP, that's really how their first Thursday started, was we were working with them and we were trying to get them, some of the businesses, to stay open at least one night a week. And businesses were open one night a week, but this one was open Wednesday, and this one was open Thursday, and this one was open a different night. And so we were trying to get some coordination. And the first Thursday event really started to coalesce that idea. And so the first year, a few people opened up on Thursday, a little bit more, and then that's kind of continued. And so, you know, that might be something to kind of think about now to test, because no business owner wants to, you know, all of a sudden just pay staff to stay open if they don't think it's going to be worth it. But I think kind of a coordinated effort, a marketing effort, there might be, you know, some opportunities there. The other thing is, I noticed that a lot of the businesses don't have posted hours in downtown. And people like to see that. I just saw a study recently that they said the number one thing people visit a website for is to find out when businesses are open. So you don't want to miss that opportunity when they're in downtown to know when you're open. This is not from Wakefield, but I just wanted to show you an example. This is actually not an expensive renovation, but it opened up the front of the store. It's much more attractive, much more open, much more transparent. The paper signs are down, and it's a big improvement. So I think the idea, this whole idea of strengthening the interface between the street and inside, you know, making it open and airy and bringing liveliness from the outside in is important. This is in another community. This is a restaurant. Can you tell whether it's open or closed? No idea, right? It looks closed. This is the same community a few doors down. So which restaurant would you rather go to? Right? It's very clear, the one on the right, it looks very inviting, it's open, a lot of interaction, and they're both open. They were both open when I took these pictures, but it's just a big difference. So sometimes you don't think about it, that you close your blinds all the time, but it creates a dead spot from the outside of the store. Wakefield businesses should give customers a reason to shop bricks and mortar. And that's not just downtown Wakefield. That's all of our bricks and mortar stores, right? So the trend is people are buying more and more online. Delivery is getting faster and faster. We're getting next day delivery. In some places we're getting same day delivery. So it's so easy for people to shop online. To maintain our customer base, we have to really think about how we can, first of all, our customer mix, maybe have more experiential things that don't compete online. And the retailers that do compete online, have it be more experiential, have tastings, have demonstrations, personalized customer service, offer services that they can't get online. But that's the only way we're going to be able to kind of keep the clientele coming to bricks and mortar. So that's something to think about. Encouraging residential development. So we're seeing a lot of Massachusetts towns go in this direction. To think about having more more people live in and near the downtown. That brings more customers in, and it also brings 24-hour, 7-day-a-week vitality into an area. The new Galvin School, that might increase the desirability of living near downtown, and it's just something to think about. A lot of our downtowns in Massachusetts are encouraging mixed-use development and residential development. They think it makes it more vibrant, more eyes on the street, make it safe, and there's more customers, kind of a built-in customer base there. And the thing about downtowns, people want to go where people already are. So the places that are vibrant, the places have people, everybody wants to go to those places. So encouraging residential development is a step in that direction because there's already people there. There's already people on the street. The establishment of Wakefield Main Streets, which is not so young anymore, another year under their belt, so this is, I'm saying it's a great step in the right direction a year ago, and now they've done lots of things and made lots of good progress. The Arts Collaborative, and I'm not sure if that's a new organization or I just didn't know about that before, but a lot of great organizations and a great progress. And I think, if I could just leave you with something, I worked in a lot of downtowns, and one thing to think about is that it takes a lot of tugboats to bring the ship in, and a lot of organizations and a lot of partners and a lot of associations. So partnering is really helpful to create partners with lots of different organizations and people in town to do get on the same page about maintaining a vibrant downtown and creating partnerships, because it's too much for one organization to do, it's too much for one person to do, and so, making sure that you branch out and talk to merchants and property owners and involve them in your planning and use them as a force to help you do activities, do work, make improvements in downtown. And I think also thinking about the younger generation and making sure that they're in the mix, and that as we are planning and looking at downtowns, everybody doesn't look like me with the reading glasses and the older generation, but we are thinking about young families and young professionals and people, and what do they want to see in downtown, because they're the ones that are coming up and they're the next generation. And they know about things like escape rooms and things that we might not know about. The last one here I have, this is from a year ago, and maybe we've made some progress. I'm not sure, but when we were talking with the Downtown Task Force, that was something that came up that was important to continue to work towards getting funding for streetscape improvements. And there's been some funding, I guess, allocated, but I think working towards that. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here again. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Mayo, and we've got a little bit of time to have some questions, and then we've got Amanda that's going to come and talk a little bit.
Can everybody hear me if I don't use the microphone? Okay. I think, in sitting here, thank you very much, Kate. What I'd like to do, maybe if it's okay, unless I'm shouted down, is to have...
Use the mic, please.
Use the mic, okay, that's why I asked. Is that better? Okay. What I'd like to do, unless anybody has a great objection, is to have Amanda give her presentation, and then have questions at the end, because there may be things that will overlap. Is that all right with everybody? Sure. Great. Amanda, while you're coming up here, let me introduce you. We are very happy to have Amanda Chisholm here from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. She is a Chief Economic Development Planner, and she has been working with us. We were lucky enough to get a grant through the MAPC to work on the development of this, I call it a cultural corridor, and Selectman Donaco tells me I confuse people when I say that. So really working to bring the arts and culture and commerce together to work in this, to work and help develop the downtown. But we're very lucky to have Amanda. She's had a number of great meetings and gave me a few tips on how to plan better for these meetings, and I really appreciate it. Amanda is a graduate of Notre Dame, so we have Notre Dame and Syracuse here tonight, also a master's at Tufts. You guys couldn't get into Georgetown, huh? Is that what you're telling me? And she just had her second baby 2 days ago, so doesn't she look great? No, she looked great. She had her second baby, second boy recently, and we're thrilled to have her, so Amanda Chisholm. Thank you, Amanda.
Great. Can you guys hear me okay here? Okay. So I do not have a formal presentation. I'm actually here just to kind of make an announcement about the project. We're having a kickoff meeting in a couple of weeks, and just to give you guys a little bit of background in terms of what we're doing. So Peg mentioned there's really a cultural and sort of arts emphasis to a lot of the recommendations in the market study. So we really want to take off on that and really capitalize on some of the momentum, not only those recommendations, but what's been happening in the past year. So we have a couple members of the Albion Cultural Exchange Committee here, and they've been doing a lot of great work. I just want to acknowledge them for some of the pop-up events that have been going on, the First Thursdays, all of the art events that have happened out of the Albion Cultural Exchange building, which is located on the corner of Albion Street, for those of you who may not be familiar. So we're really looking to that building as sort of an anchor for this study and trying to expand and build on that momentum to look broadly at the whole corridor along Albion Street. There's already some great existing art studios, not only on that street but downtown, and to really elevate what's already here, to map those cultural assets, show people what you already have, connect those communities, and then to really come up with strategies for how to really make that a destination. So a lot of what Peg was saying is that experience is so important. It's so important to be able to attend events, to really activate the streetscape and storefronts. And there's a really great opportunity to really focus on culture and arts as a way to do that. So we do have a kickoff meeting coming up, and we really want to hear from all of you, not only from what you're already enjoying and what you see as the potential vision and future for this corridor, but also, what's the appetite for additional arts and cultural uses. And the event is on November 17th. I have flyers. I will pass those around and make sure they're available when you're leaving tonight. And all my information is on there as well. I'll leave cards outside. So if you have questions before, please let me know. And we really want to make sure this is an engaging process. We want to hear from as many people as possible. So if you can't make the event, at the event we're actually launching an online survey. We'll distribute that. We want to hear from anyone who can respond to that as well. And then hope to do a couple other engaging events at some of the already events that are going on, like the holiday stroll. We're hoping to do something there to hear from folks as well. So lots of opportunities. If you can't make it to anything, give me a call, shoot me an email. So we're really excited to be doing this, and I hope that you guys are also excited, and just let me know if you need more information. All right.
Great, thank you, Amanda. Now, for the next hour or so, I'd like to turn it over to the audience, and you can ask questions, make comments. As you're gathering then, maybe I'll ask Selectman and Janako to maybe be microphone, if you don't mind. You didn't know when you were ranting about this stuff. A couple of people to recognize while you're getting ready for your questions. And why don't we have Amanda and Peg come up here, so questions may be for you. Our town planner, Paul Revis, is here tonight. Paul, if you would come down here, there's maybe some questions you're going to answer as well. A couple of other, town engineer Mike Collins. Mike, you can come down if you want, or you could stay. Jim McBain from the Board of Appeals is here tonight. Anybody else on the Board of Appeals? Nothing, okay. Matt Lowry and Bill Spalding from the Planning Board, and Chris Fowley. Billy DeMori, did I miss anybody? No, that's good there. Marion Cohen from the Chamber of Commerce. There's been a great synergy with the Chamber of Commerce, and a lot of the items that Peg talked about, we've actually been working on with them. Catherine McDonald, our Assistant Library Director, and I think Sharon Gilly as well, our Library Director, is here, a critical part of our downtown. I will note that that's 800 people a day that come into the library. So we're not going to look to cut your budget because it's only 800 a year, so I couldn't let that go by. Bob McLaughlin is helping us with the filming tonight. And I want to thank Tom Bankert from the school department for helping us out. Did I miss anybody? No, we also have people from Main Street's program, Bob DeBello. So questions. That's what we're here for, questions and participation. So please raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone. This woman right in the front, wait till we give you a microphone, okay? Just so, we're gonna tape it so people at home can hear it. That's why.
Hi.
If you press the button, it should be green.
It should be, it's not.
Press it and hold it.
I have no stage lights.
Press the left side.
Hey, Kathleen Sharp, about a 2.5-year resident of Pleasant Street, so I'm looking at, in Wakefield, so I'm looking at this as a new resident. One of the things that I'm wondering about listening to all of this is how are we going to welcome and, trying to not say take advantage of, but the tremendous burst of people who arrive with Brightview. There'll be a lot of people living there. a lot of people working there, a lot of people visiting there. And I'm interested in knowing how the institutions in Wakefield are planning to wrap them into the community and to, frankly, take advantage of the tremendous burst of people from elsewhere who will be right downtown with money. And where the hell are they going to park?
Okay, I promise tonight will not be go into discussion about parking. But they do have parking on site.
No, I
Okay.
understand that, because it is true
The
that
parking is an issue where we are struggling with in the downtown. I can't lie. We will continue to work on that. I am looking forward to having a lot of people. There is a lot of independent living in there too. That's something that we wanted in the mix, and I'm hoping that they'll go to the library and go to the stores and go to Zuzu's and go to Cravings and go to Creations, and hopefully they'll be walking. Experience in those types of buildings have been that there aren't that many cars as for residents as there are, in a regular apartment building. I'm frankly looking forward to that. Do I have a concrete plan? I can't say that I do, other than that they have parking on site, and we are looking to other areas in town to create some niches for parking. Stay tuned. Yeah, no. That's a valid point.
This is a burst of money.
Yeah,
And a burst of people, and I'm thinking that it can be.
and I'm hoping that'll be a burst of business for the people downtown. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll be working with them. But thank you. That's on our radar. Does the town planner, Paul, do you have anything you want to add to that?
The building, when it was approved by the zoning board of appeals, oh, it's on. When it was approved by the zoning board of appeals, they amended their plan and created a pedestrian access to Main Street. It's right beside Sabatino's, between the UU Church and Sabatino's. So that'll be a pedestrian entrance and a way for people that live there and visit there to access Main Street and the businesses on Main Street.
But then they'll have to be ready for it, right? I mean, to appeal to that particular, actually a fairly broad population.
Good
It's
points.
a real burst.
I know that we've been talking to Brightview about having actually job fairs, and I'll call it because we get a lot of calls about people that already want to register to move there, and people looking for jobs. So that's another thing that they've gone through this before in other communities, so we'll be working with them too to take advantage of that. So thank you for the question.
This weekend was a highly successful event with the haunted happenings. And I'm trying to understand the difference between what's happening with the Wakefield merchants and what happens with the event planning committee, and how those things, how they either coordinate, or as we develop more things like this. It's funny, talking about National Fluff Day or whatever it is, and it pops into my mind of like, aren't we the people in Wakefield? Don't we make those airplanes, the paper airplanes?
Maybe Willow Day.
I'm like, don't we need to take advantage of that and have a giant paper or wooden airplane day? But
I think you're going to run the Willow Day, okay? So.
But I'm curious to know the events that are happening within the town. How are those coordinated across the different groups?
Well, I'll start in with the haunted happenings, and then Selectman Dinoco, who is chair of the events planning, can jump in as well. We have, working with the chamber and with the downtown merchants, they actually created a new group, and they felt that they wanted downtown merchants talking to downtown merchants. This was really through the downtown merchants themselves, which was really great from my perspective, that they wanted to take ownership, so to speak, of this. So they got together with, we've been doing a Fright Night or a pumpkin festival. What do we call that, Fright Night too? Fright Night, and then that has evolved into, there's a lot of student movies that they show that are for more of the older kids. So, you know, the Fright Night kind of merged into this trick-or-treating thing where a lot of kids on that Thursday night in the dark were in the downtown, kind of darting across Main Street. It was really quite fearful. And as this got more popular and more people came down, you know, we were always worried about that. But the group of merchants got together and said they wanted to expand that, really the experience of the entire weekend. So the merchants group got together with the chamber and dovetailed off of Fright Night and said, hey, what if we did something on, what about Saturday and Sunday? And Saturday, I think more of the restaurants did some stuff, and we actually have a restaurant group through the chamber now, or the chamber does have a restaurant group. And Haunted Happenings was really the merchants that did that on Sunday. So I think the events planning committee took a sigh of relief that we weren't putting another big event on them. And I think it worked out really well. First time out, I think there were 8,000 people. And it was nice to have something really catered to some of the younger kids too. And I think that's maybe why we didn't have so many kids trick-or-treating Monday night, which was actually much better all around for us. So you're right, we have a lot of groups that are working for the same goal. What we'll try to do is try to get them really to work together. And certainly in this instance,
Perfect way that the event expanded. Because what we really want to do with events is get as much out of them as possible. You know, so that's what you do with tourist economic development. You get people to come first, then you get people to stay longer. So they always, like that's Las Vegas, right? People used to come for gaming, but then they realized, okay, they were missing a whole big part of the population, the spouses that didn't game. So they had to have entertainment, they had to have things for the kids, right? And so I think with downtown events, well, if you're going to make all this fuss about Halloween, extend it to the weekend. And make sure, Halloween is a perfect example because sometimes that happens at a time when a lot of the businesses might not be open. But if you find a way to extend it through the weekend. And I think your point was really well founded, that to make sure, right, that every time you have downtown events that groups are coordinating. First of all, you want to have competing events, but also you want to make sure that the events are really economic development events. That they're really about, promoting and making more, more sales for businesses downtown, promoting the town, getting more out of them. I'll just, a little word of caution, what's happened in some of the downtowns we've worked in, events can kind of take on a life of their own and be very popular, but the downtown can sometimes just become a venue. It's just a place where the event is held. And that's not what you want to do here. You want to bring events so that it cements the relationship between the residents and the downtown, so it brings more businesses in, and it really has economic impact. So not that it's just a place to have an event, but it's really like a coordination with the merchants and the business owners.
How do you avoid that? How do you avoid just becoming a venue?
the question was, how do we avoid just becoming a venue?
I can talk pretty loud. Big family. Okay. Well, I think one thing is that always ensure that with every event, that downtown vibrancy is one of the goals. You could actually almost institute that. And every event, every cultural event, every group that holds an event downtown, that they agree that increasing downtown vibrancy would be one of their goals. And then they have to think about how do they connect their event with downtown businesses. Simple things like, you've got so many races coming to the lake, like all these different races and events and whatnot. Well, maybe there should be, if you get a permit from the town to have one of those events, maybe you have to have, I don't know, something, advertising for downtown businesses. Maybe you have to have the finish line in downtown. Maybe you have to, there's a dedicated revenue stream, there's a fee and it goes to downtown. But, you could kind of think about like a policy that went across all activities to at least so that the event putter-oners, sponsors, or producers, right, would think about that. Because that would affect when the event is held, how it's promoted, how it's connected, but to just think that, we're really trying to do this as an economic development activity for our town. Maybe that means a preference for local vendors, for local folks, that not everything is coming in from out of town, that we're trying to promote what's local, we're trying to buy local, we're trying to increase employment opportunities local, even with events, because we're trying to promote what's here. So just, that kind of thing.
What like a registration desk at a downtown storefront. If you're going to race, you come there to register.
Yep.
And it's in the downtown, not up at the head of the lake.
Anything that brings the events, into the area.
I think behind you, Paul, there was a question.
I wanted to speak to that very issue before you brought it up now about tying the lake in with downtown more. We seem to have these series of concrete infrastructure that act as barrier after barrier after barrier between them. The Rockery sort of has its back to the lake. The World War II Memorial is a wall, literally, that separates the downtown. And it just seems that, like, what can the town do to capitalize on pulling these elements together? The fountain at the Rockery, right, is a real pedestrian draw, but there are no crosswalks to it, and there's not a really good sidewalk, and there's that big blind corner, and it's almost like, look at this thing, but don't come near it. And the pathway, when you walk to the World War II Memorial, you have to go around it, and if we do have an event like the Farmers Market, which to me seems like the perfect thing to bring people downtown, right near the lake, instead we put it on the far side of the lake so that you can go to the farmer's market without ever having to come near downtown. But these are all things that the town isn't dependent on, completely dependent on other business owners or rallying groups. Like, it just seems that there's so much public space there that we could do. What can we do to supersede these barriers?
Want me to handle that one? Anybody else want to take it? I'm with you on the Rockery. I think that fountain should be featured. That's Steve Mail, personally speaking, going out on a limb. There's a lot of people that really like that Rockery, so that is something that actually I've had discussions with other people in this room about that. The Veterans Memorial Park is named that, the Veterans Memorial Park. And it has been maintained, which is the Upper Common. Other people call it, has been maintained as the Upper Common for a long time. The farmers market has been talked about going there. I'll tell you that the farmers market hasn't made a really good push. They do like where they are as well. But that is something that is worth talking about. I do like the idea, certainly, of getting more out of the walks around the lake. I frankly like we've talked about them having walking through the downtown as part of the permit process, so they see the businesses and what have you. Create some traffic problems. I do like the idea of getting some money out of them for beautification to the downtown on the walks. A lot of people say, well, they're charities. A lot of them are very, very big charities that pay people a lot of money at the top of that charity list, so they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year running the charity, so it doesn't bother me charging them a little bit more. We charge them now that we use for the common upkeep and as well. So I think those are things we need to keep in mind. We've talked about a Wakefield app kind of thing on your phone, thinking of the younger people as you go around the lake that would shoot up to talk about things. We've talked about low-tech things like kiosks. Selectman Dinoco, Selectman May have been talking about that. I was in Maine and I talked to our chamber director, that low-tech guide. They had a restaurant guide of all the restaurants, and you're in one, you can't find, it's a 2-hour wait. Here, look at the guide, go down the street. And that's something that the chamber is working on those things. So, Sarah, I get what you're saying. There's a lot of things we can do. Maybe one of it is to get easy crosswalks to at least to that fountain so people can see it. So that's something that we can certainly talk about. So thank you. Anybody want to wait?
Just following up on that, is there ever any discussion about the Rockery and why it's such a big wall between the downtown?
Why don't you repeat that, Pat, if you don't mind, just so.
You know, it's interesting.
Wait for the microphone.
Yeah. Pat Bruno, 2 Mackenzie Lane. It's interesting because the Rockery has come up in many discussions over the years. And Peg, it's great to see you back here after a year, and Amanda, hello again. But question is, why is the Rockery there in the first place? Obviously, it's well intended in the original Wakefield Square. However, there's so much competition to bring people down into the town or up from the lake And it's impossible for anybody to get a view of the downtown with the rockery. And you know, you hit it right on the head. You have walls between the downtown and the lake. Downtown is the one piece that makes us different from every community around us, from Reading, from Linfield, from Melrose, which makes our community much better than any other community in this vicinity. So if you were out there, photographers, taking a day to go and perhaps do all 4 communities at the same time, you would spend half the day in Wakefield rather than going to Reading, Linfield, or Melrose. So what is it that keeps us from trying to alleviate the height of the rockery in 2016? Could someone answer that question?
Well, let me speak to the other question first, and then I'll let one of you guys speak about the rockery if you have any thoughts on that. So the question about sort of connecting the lake to the downtown and some of the barriers. So that's something that's really interesting in terms of the arts and culture piece that I'm talking about is, you know, if you do have a large infrastructure barrier, is there a creative way to create a connection or to invite some public art or some kind of installations, even signage, some of the stuff that Peg was talking about. You know, you're never going to have the perfect setup with every building, you know, perfectly beautiful and to the standard of urban design. Having a huge wall, yes, can definitely be a barrier, but if you think a little creatively, you know, is there a sort of like a low-cost way to go to the community, you know, pull on your existing assets and create that connection that way? So that's just a really interesting sort of different way of thinking about it. Is there a way to reframe the barrier as an opportunity? And in some cases there may be, so. Okay.
We did our preservation plan a few years back. The planner that was involved in doing the plan suggested that the rockery was a special place and that we needed to look at creating more special places like the rockery in the town. If you think about what has happened around the rockery, we have Zuzu's, we have the Brightview. That certainly was a character of the downtown created by the rockery that probably drew the marketing people from Brightview to want that site and want to locate in the downtown. It's a very iconic feature of the town. I would think that in our master plan we did in 2003, we suggested that we should have something like that at the junction as an entrance to the town, coming in and then think about Main Street along the Galvin Middle School area is a tree-lined area. We have the beginning of the rail trail plan for that. That area could be landscaped so that it becomes something like the rockery, and it's a very big draw as an open space. The open spaces are what bring people and what bring development to your communities. If you were to do a master plan for a new town, the first thing you would want to try to think about is where are people going to gather? Where are the nice open spaces? What are people going to look at? And so I would venture to say that Artichokes is a very nice experience because the rockery is there. Taking the wall down is not going to make the downtown more visible because there is so much traffic going through the town. It's a very tough area for pedestrians to walk across that area. And I'm a pedestrian in that area a great deal. So I don't know that we gain a lot by taking that down. I don't know that we have terrific barriers. And I would comment also about people that walk around the lake. They're dedicated to walking around the lake. They do it in the winter. They're not doing it because they're having fun most of the time. They're doing it for health reasons. They are not pizza eaters. They are not people that are going to go buy an ice cream cone directly. They're more interested in walking the lake. You know, they could be informed over what's the downtown, but that may not be that mission that day that they're walking the lake. So I think that punishing the rockery because you want to have a storefront downtown that is visible is, I think, a wrong mission. So,
Steve, we have another question.
But that's my point of view. Other people have different.
Steve, we have another question.
Scale it down.
Steve, we have another question up here too.
Okay, thank you. Peter?
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. I love the Rockery. It's one of the marquee things in town. There are a fistful of marquee locations in town. This question is going to involve town engineer. It's something you and I talked about today, Paul. Traffic calming and access to that. The key thing to do downtown to involve the Rockery is to expand the upper common, eliminate that cut through between the two sections of Main, and make that Rockery part of the upper common. With the extra space, it's way easier to bring the farmer's market up. That's the way to incorporate the upper common into downtown. And I know the traffic piece is monumental to take a run at, but I think that's the biggest thing to downtown.
I think right down in front of you, Peter. This way.
So with the talk of access and all this, has there been any consideration given to how much money we want to put into the infrastructure? So say streetscapes, it sounds like we're probably beyond just streetscapes, that there may be actual real infrastructure changes to try and promote some of this. Has there been any thoughts about how much of a dollar value that we're willing to put into that? Because it does sound like if some money is invested, it's gonna, and I don't think that's a huge amount of money, that you're able to connect the common to, say that entrance to downtown.
Well, let's see, from my perspective, I'm very happy to have Amanda and Peg here too, and Amanda's going to be doing a real, study on this, and I like our idea of maybe reusing that Rockery, and that's probably something that can be married through everybody to look that out, and we can look at Chris's idea too. And when we have a plan, when we're looking at it, we can figure out, the cost and how we're going to do that. So yes, absolutely. It's like anything else, we have to have a plan, and then figure out the cost.
Steve, one more over here.
This lady had her hand up.
Hi, two comments. One is about the Rockery. I want to give a shout out to the WCNA, which maintains that. They maintain the fountain part of it. They maintain the landscaping around that. It is a war memorial. There is a plaque there for Spanish-American War, and they are right now designing, getting a replacement plaque, which is a huge undertaking, working with companies in New York City and such, finding the right company that can make the appropriate historic-looking plaque for that. But secondly, I spent a long day, a 12-hour day down in Hartford about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday. And it was at an indoor event on a lovely Saturday afternoon. I was delayed to have a half-hour break in the middle of the day, and I went out for a walk, because I'm one of those kind of people who walk, break hard, and walk the lake for health. So I went out for a short walk, and I found a sign that labeled The Long Walk on the Trinity College campus. And I thought, well, let's see where the long walk takes me. Had it not been for that sign, I wouldn't have checked out that part of campus. I would have walked the boundary of the campus, the outside sidewalks of it, and I would have missed great views of that campus. I think the same thing could be true in Wakefield. If you had a sign down by the lake that indicated the long walk or whatever that went into Wakefield, people might be enticed to see what this does. I also was taken by the signs for, was it Newburyport, that indicated, the shopping downtown and stuff. And I think that would also be a great benefit to Wakefield to have, because I always use those signs when I'm at Settlers Green up in North Conway. I'm consulting those signs of where do I want to go, want to make sure I'm not missing something. I think that would be terrific.
I was just going to add to that. A couple of things that downtowns have been doing along that line is creating historic walking tours, which, instead of the long walk, it's the historic walking tour of downtown Wakefield, where there could be information. You've got a lot of historic sites here. So it could take people on a tour, those kind of things. And I think that the other thing that is kind of interesting to come off of what Paul had said about the walkers around the lake, We're starting to see some of the commercial districts having urban walks and urban trails, and creating a trail for people that want to do exercise walk, but taking them through a commercial district, and it's just another route. So I think all those kind of things, anything that you can think of that leads them through, I think it's a great idea.
I'd just like to shout out that we do have a walking tour on the website under the visitors section. So if you click on the visitors section, the Historical Society has a walking tour, and there's also a restaurant guide.
Hi. So my name is Tal. I'm a resident here for about a year now. 31 years old, and I'm coming from living in Somerville near Davis Square. So obviously didn't expect the same sort of livelihood as Davis Square, but there's a beautiful lake that drew us to Wakefield here. And one thing I wanted to call out is it seems like when you walk downtown, half of it is quite beautiful and charming, and then there's kind of a line where the other half isn't quite as charming, and there's actually a lot of vacancies. And so I guess one question is with the cityscape effort, what can we do to, first of all, fill in those vacancies, but then also improve some of those facades to kind of tie in the entire charming theme that's closer to the lake to the other half of downtown?
I'll talk about the vacancies. I have a couple of landlords I'm going to lock in that escape room until they actually agree to work with someone who's going to, I know I'm being funny, but that is true. We work very hard with the landlords, and there are a couple of them that are really tough to get a move on, and we can have that. And you can kind of visualize exactly where they are as you do your walk downtown. I think that we've done some, and part of what we're doing here is what we're going to hope is going to fill those vacancies as well, but we've done some zoning changes to allow residential above retail in a circle around the train. Chamber of Commerce has done a lot of work. The Merchants Group trying to pull all this together. It is not easy work, and I can't tell you the number of new businesses that have come in and lamented that they'd like to do something, they'd like to spend their money to fix some of these storefronts up and have not been able to cut a deal. And we've tried to do it, we're just going to keep on trying. But I get it. What your second question was?
Yeah, so like using money from Cityscape to improve the general facade.
Okay, facade program. Do you want to talk about that maybe? Someone from Main Streets want to at least talk about what we're working on? Mr. Donaco, maybe?
There is something currently being worked on in trying to come up with a proper program through the Main Street organization. There's not enough information really to pass around to the general public because the details still need to be worked out. But facades is an important issue within the town, and so is the signage. The ease on which a business obtains a sign is a very hard struggle right now for a lot of them. So that becomes an issue, an inherent issue over the course of time. We are, the Main Street is in collaboration right now with the Chamber over the sign bylaw, which we have funds for, so they can come into a program and receive a grant. So that's already in place right now for the existing merchants or even new merchants that come into the town. So we are working on trying to make improvements to the store frontage little at a time, but it takes the proper action before it can be initiated.
So I was just gonna, is this on? Okay. Just to quickly speak to that, so I also used to live around Somerville, so I know the Davis Square vibe, very cool space. I feel like vacancies are, they can be due to so many different reasons. Sometimes it is a property owner that you need to work with. They might be facing a particular issue that you don't really know anything about, and learning more about what those issues are and trying to provide the education and resources they need can often be a key first step. A lot of what we're going to be doing through this project is community engagement oriented, so trying to bring in as many property owners as possible and try to understand what some of those challenges are. And then on the fun and sort of creative side, a lot of communities have been doing really cool sort of pop-ups to kind of test the market in some of these vacant spaces. So my colleague Christine Medora is here. She actually used to live in Peabody, where they actually just put in like a pop-up coffee shop in one of their vacant spots. And it worked out so well, and people were so excited about it that it actually became a permanent coffee shop. So it was just sort of a fun way to kind of test the market, see if people are interested, and then, you know, maybe it can turn into a permanent space. So there are sort of creative ways to go about this as well, and I think that some of that might be an interesting fit for some of the vacancies.
Here and then.
Hi, my name is Rada, and I own a Rada Boutique downtown Wakefield. I own a business there for 12 years in our town, but in that particular location for 9 years. Sometimes beautifying your front could just mean a coat of paint, and it could be done very inexpensively, which I have done a couple of times. We all agree that beautifying our downtown and just like the light bulb lit when you showed that picture of the 2 restaurants, how inviting, how we can create an ambiance that is more walkable and approachable to our downtown. And over the years that I live in town, there was a lot of talk about the master plan of this and master plan of that and wanting to do this and that. What we all agree, would it be more beneficial to have a master plan that works, that aesthetic downtown to continue all the way down? Perhaps lowering the street lamps are extremely high, make it more cozy, that you can hang the flower basket on, putting benches, fixing finally sidewalks. It's my pet peeve, as some of you know. Also the repaving the street. We have to decide as a community what's important and what do we really want. Do we want to create all these things in a sort of some of the maybe shabby chic kind of a look of a town? By creating an ambience, it's more people would be more likely to stroll, more likely to think of us as a social gathering, social place. Right now, I'm fortunate to own a business in 2 different towns. One is very walkable and approachable. And when do we actually decide to make that as a priority? Obviously, the vibrancy of this town, it's all of these other components are benefiting and becoming as a one unit. When do we actually, when you mentioned something, Master Plan 2003, and my head spins, what year is now? 2016, almost over. So we just have to start acting on some of those master plans, and some of those studies, and allocating some of that money that we already have in town that we can use and start small. Little signs, street signs at the lake pointing at the streets, bump outs, it's dangerous. I've witnessed many times people get hit on our street. So that we could attract more businesses to come to downtown. Even after 9 years being downtown, I still have local residents that have no idea that I'm there. And I had spent exuberant amount of money on marketing or social media and so on. So because they don't think about downtown as somewhere where they just want to just throw in. So we, Mr. Mayor, we budget-wise and as a town, we're a pretty healthy town. Recently, we lowered the taxes, that was great. We are actually a financially stable town, and we actually even built our Galvin School. I mean, that's not many towns around us can actually have that amazing, healthy financial situation. So when do we just decide to use some of the money from, we have a surplus or a cash reserve over $6 million there. Do we want to allocate some of that money immediately to just spend it maybe just to make a quickly visible difference downtown so that we don't have to wait another 10 years, 5 years for that thing to fall into place?
Well, I think that's the same kind of question that Chris Fowley asked, is how do we fund what we're doing? Now, if you're talking about some small things here and there, like you talk about a signage or a couple things like that, that can certainly be done. Certainly, we could look at some of those things in spring town meeting, but as you know, everything gets voted on at town meeting. And so the budget is put forward, and during the budget process, I'll be looking forward to the findings of this group here, seeing what they're suggesting and what could be put forward. Things like benches and things like that. But again, it's up to the community to vote on. So you even hear tonight, some people like, and I think you talk about the rockery. I think I'll speak for Mr. Bruno, and if I'm wrong, I think what he means is the rocks at the end that are high and blocking. I don't think you meant the statue or the flowers or the fountain, correct? Yeah, he said thumbs up, neither did I. But I get what you're saying, and we do the best in the budget that we can, and we'll keep going. We also try to coordinate with gas and electric, and a lot of times, we can't do complete improvements until that is insulated and done. So we'll check on that too. We're not going to do a new road and then rip it up because electric or gas had to be redone. So.
I just feel that owning a business that long, it's just the waiting period it's quite long, and some of these businesses come and go, and you just want to have that sense that people would want to come down and experience. We're a great restaurant, a great few shops. We actually have a great town. We just are not having our residents and get them excited about our town. We need to be so positive and wanting to almost educate our citizen of our Wakefield to how important it is. Not everybody has the same experience that most of us here in this group. Do we create a marketing campaign where we somehow remind in a gentle way, in a way that importance for our residents to realize to support the downtown activities and businesses? Maybe something like that could be looked at as a sort of an educating part of why is it important, what would benefit them, how they would benefit the regular resident that avoided downtown for whatever reason. When one day they're selling their home will be more worth because there's an exciting downtown that new buyers are going to buy their home, or a great school system. So maybe something along the effort of a marketing, a strategy to excite residents and everybody to truly come down. And even to say hello, it just become a social gathering.
Hi, my name is Audrey Clary. I live up on the east side of the lake. I too lived in Somerville, I've lived in Watertown, so I've kind of lived in those more urban areas as well. I'm a transit rider. I also drive. I like to walk, and I also like to bike. So I will take my kids on their bikes and walk to downtown Wakefield to go to events or just to pop into farmland for a loaf of bread. I just want to re-echo some of the comments that have already been made in terms of improving the pedestrian and bicycle connections between the lake and the downtown, which can be achieved through physical improvements, through wayfinding, like you've already pointed to. A traffic study is probably a good idea to improve the connectivity between the Upper Common and the other memorial. In terms of, and I also see Radha's point as well, as a driver coming through downtown, trying to bring my kids across the street in downtown. The crossings are too long on Main Street. They need to be narrowed down. As a driver from the angled parking on Main Street, it's really dangerous. There's no visibility whatsoever. That needs to be taken care of. I think there's a lot of good restaurants downtown that could do with some outdoor seating. Zuzu seems to be pretty popular with their patio. I'm sure a lot of the other businesses in downtown could do with some sidewalk seating if the sidewalks were wide enough. You talked about some pop-up events. There are the major events like the Wakefield Italia, the Halloween and others. There's some smaller events that we could look at like Parking Day. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that, but if you can take out a couple of parking spaces for a day or a couple of days, put out some seating, patio areas, restaurants could use them just for those days to see, you know, would they be used? They're called parklets also. And then finally, I just wanted to make a note on the funding side. MassDOT has currently, Massachusetts Department of Transportation currently has $12.5 million of funding available for complete streets programs for construction projects. There was an announcement today, Beverly got $400,000 to improve their downtown. Framingham has got a lot, Medford has also got a lot. So I know town officials have been to the training sessions for complete streets. So I would ask, what are we doing to pursue that type of funding to improve our downtown for pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers who are pedestrians once they get out of their car?
That's very true. I've been to the training for Complete Streets, and it's a good program. It's about pedestrianization of streets, making the streets available not just for vehicles, but for not for cars, just for cars, but for everyone, for the elderly, children, so that streets really do function for everyone. We have attempted to try to pursue that with trying to get the mission statement that you have to do first. That is, I think, before Mr. Stinson to be worked on, and he's been working on that. So that needs to be adopted first by the Board of Selectmen. That we would have a policy statement on complete streets, and once you do that, you're eligible to begin to submit the grant requests.
Right, it's a 2-year program currently. I think the expectation is that MassDOT would expand that funding opportunities, but what's the timeline on adopting a policy in town? And that, because you need to have the, like you said, have the policy in place. There needs to be some funding for the design of improvements, which MassDOT do not fund, but they do fund the big ticket item, which is construction.
Right, so you have to design it first, pay for the design work first, the survey work, and then submit that for the approval and the funding.
I just wanted to make sure that that was known,
Yeah,
that this is a really great opportunity.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. You are in the transportation planning field, and this is your field, right? And we've talked about this, and it's a great idea to try to do that. We had an earmark that was in one of the bond bills to redo Albion Street and do street improvements on Albion Street. That was passed by the legislature, but it has not been released. So we're looking at that also as a part of the Albion Street project. We're going to try to think about how we can shape that street so that it has a character of a festival street, perhaps able to close it once a month to have evening events, something like that could happen. And that would be a terrific thing to revitalize a lot of the shops along Albion.
Steve, right here, and then
Joe Marshall, I moved here about a year ago, partly because seeing so much potential in Wakefield, but it is potential, and I'm here because I kind of wanted to hear, what somebody's vision is, and obviously this presentation is a great start. There was a lot of mentioning about old master plans and possible looking at future. Can you speak a little bit about what you're looking at in that planning is, if it's throughout the whole town, just the downtown, the different levels of, if that incorporates traffic studies and other pieces of the master, of a potential future master plan?
The plans that we did a few years back were generally massing studies where we would encourage higher density development. perhaps at the junction and some of the downtowns. We suggested that some of the downtown buildings might be replaced by 3- and 4-story buildings with housing over retail. Last year, we took a zoning amendment before the Board of Selectmen. They endorsed it, and the Planning Board also endorsed it, and it moved forward to town meeting and was passed by 75% of the people at town meeting. That zoning change allowed mixed-use development by special permit through an easier process than we had previously. And subsequent to that, we have a project now underway. The ground was broken for it about 2 weeks ago. It's under construction on North Ave, 175 North Ave. That'll be 60 units of condominiums above retail. The zoning change would perhaps leverage developers to look at sites in the downtown, like the Bank of America site, where Hart's Hardware is located, the Cafe Molise that's across the street from the CVS. This zoning change, I think, is going to bring about some changes in the downtown. It was talked about for a long time. The master plan proposed it. So we now see some of the beginning. You may have read some of the articles in the paper. There is some backlash. Some people think it's too much and it's happening too quick. So it is in place and it is beginning to work. Your RADA's effort is about streetscapes. Generally, those cost a lot of money, and you have to design them all up front. The town designs them. Reading did that over a series of years, doing incrementally a couple blocks at a time. They would pay for the survey work, pay for the engineering work, and then they would get in line for state funding to actually put the improvements in place. And what we witnessed in Reading was that they ended up lowering Route 28 through their main street, perhaps 3 feet. The construction took many months, almost 3 years. Some of the businesses went out of business. So we don't know that we want to impose that on Wakefield. That would be a very big discussion with the merchants and the property owners about the construction impacts of changing that street. Main Street had a trolley line down the middle of the street, so it has a very high crown. If you wanted to widen the sidewalks, you would need to lower the street. And that would take a terrific amount of expenditure. So we've been trying to nibble on the edges, doing incremental little things like zoning changes, this Albion Arts District, to try to just bring more activity first before going headlong into a big streetscape improvement program. The bump outs are been limited for many years because of fire trucks and the turning radiuses for fire trucks that come out of Princess Street that are right there at Rada's. That's why there's no bump out there. That's the turning radius for a fire truck to exit from the station and make it to Main Street. All of that could be looked at again, but I agree that the crossing distance across Main Street is pretty significant. You're exposed to a lot of steel before you get across that street, and the lighting is designed in an economic way that was done probably in the 70s. Perhaps there could be a greater intensity of light on the street so you can see better. But these are all good comments. And all have been sort of tried to think about them in the master plans in the past and in the conversations we do now. We just got through the recession. 2008, the town did a lot of belt tightening. The town's beginning to try to expand and look for horizons now. We're even talking about dismantling the rockery, which is one of our greatest assets. And it seems to have been one of the things that attracted so many businesses. So I'm very concerned about dismantling that or changing that without doing other things first. That's sort of my thought on that.
Let
get for the first
Steve,
time?
yeah, Steve, we have one more in the back here first.
Back and then, okay, no, it's fine. We'll get people for the first time, then we'll come back.
Yep.
Hello, I'm curious in regards to,
Just put it closer.
I'm curious in regards to coordinating with business around the lake, for instance, the rental for kayaks and paddle boats, if there's any consideration of like a coupon book or more advertising to draw more people downtown, but also in regards to the health of the lake, is that maybe a different committee?
Yeah, the health of the lake is definitely a different committee. I'll talk about that second. The kayaking place, absolutely. You know, I think that was started. I'll make sure that they continue that. We certainly have a much more vibrant chamber now than we did, and they can certainly help with that. Great point. We will move up on that. The health of the lake is I guess it didn't get there in a year, and it's not going to be resolved in a year. And actually, our town engineer here who has chaired a committee that probably spent a year studying, or a year plus studying this issue, 2 years maybe. And we are really looking at some emerging technologies to see what can be done there. I think it's a combination of a lot of issues to bring that back to a healthier situation. So that is on the horizon. I gotta say, stay tuned, and I'm not gonna promise it'll be back on the agenda in May or next November, but I looked at a new technology the other day that talked about taking some of the cyanobacteria or algae, the things I learned, and actually a company that makes that into sneakers, of all things. No, it's crazy. I mean, and so if that's something that we could use to help out with that, I'm certainly all for it to start. I won't solve the problem long going, but it's something that we're looking at.
Okay, I'd actually like to help on the committee, so if anybody's here, I can talk to them afterwards.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you. Anybody else for the first time? Gentleman down here in the front row in the orange, and then Peter, I think there's someone back.
Right, just one quick one from,
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that folks understood that from the state's perspective, the town has done a very good job making the state aware of the needs of the downtown, and quite frankly, trying to kind of connect between transportation and what's been more traditionally looked at as economic development. And to the credit of the town and the merchants, the Secretary of Economic Development, Jay Ash, came to Wakefield and wanted to make sure, Steve, that you and the folks that are the leaders in this get the proper recognition for engaging in the state, both under the Patrick administration and now under Charlie Baker's administration, and bringing folks out. And Jay Ash has taken an interest in what's going on with Albion and some of the other projects. He's also been, to his credit, quite candid about what the town, from his perspective, needs to do to access some of the funds, like complete streets, like the bond money that we're talking about in the MassWorks program. So very engaged, but also very candid, and I can tell you firsthand that they very much respect the work that the community is trying to do to tap into those programs.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Julian. I'm the owner of Rebirth Body Transformation Center. And you know, there's a lot of talk about new business and drawing new business downtown, so I think it's probably appropriate for me to chime in a little bit as someone that recently opened a business 2 years ago in the town. And you know, the things that have already been touched upon, which was like when I was looking at where to, you know, looking at inventory in the town 2 years ago and to relocate my business from Boston up to here was, you know, looking downtown, I was looking at two things, which was the varying aesthetics of the downtown area with my the high-end service that we offer. Did that really match the aesthetics of of Main Street? And then additionally was the parking, and I can tell you 2 years later, we're coming up near the end of our lease in the next year, and we're outgrowing our space, and we're looking at expanding, and you know, 2 years later, here we are, and I'm looking at, I just don't necessarily see a reason to relocate to the downtown area. being a new business that primarily we generate our own business. You know, we have zero visibility, zero foot traffic, all of it's done online. This is how the new business is done. And we have something to bring where it's like, if we found a place that had a storefront, we would be bringing additional traffic. And I don't want to get into past discussions just because I'm new to the town, but as you can see, is most people are moving out of the city. Young families like myself, you know, are buying in the area outside of Boston now. I guess it's something that really just, I you know, haven't been here. I don't know what the issue with the parking is. So obviously, by your response from when that was brought up earlier, it sounds like a pretty, you know, like it's a length. Yeah, I'm sure it's been discussed at length. I think the thing is, right now I'm on that cusp where it's like, so the inventory, even though it seems like from Peg's analysis that there is inventory, from what I see, it's not something that it looks like appealing to a business like mine, and we're honestly looking at other towns in the surrounding area because we can generate our own business, you know? So it's like, it's not something that having 2 years invested in Wakefield, where you say like, I understand about being part of the community, that it's like, this is something that we've already started working on, we want to stay here, but we're looking, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm trying to find reasons to be able to relocate downtown, and if parking is one of those things, it's like, we're new people coming in, I just want like, maybe like a sentence or two of like, what are the solutions a business like mine can look for, you know, you know, like, what would draw us downtown?
What was your business, sorry? Yeah.
So we're a fitness center. So, but we're the community-based fitness center, and that's where fitness is going. You know, not people going to the gym, being on the treadmill by themselves, like being involved in services. Everybody's invested in the place. It's a higher-end service. You know, the cost per month is significantly higher than they would get at any of the other local health clubs. So these are the people that towns like this want. We're drawing people from, you know, a 5-mile to 7-mile radius that are driving specifically for us, and we bring people that are spending significantly more money than the $10 a month gyms. You know, so those are the things that, like, when I look at it as, you know, like we're an asset to the town, it's like, I'm trying to look to say like, well, what's the draw of going downtown? What's the draw of going to Main Street if those two issues are, you know, significant? So,
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mine kind of follows up on his point, is recruiting businesses. It seems like an obstacle with some landlords downtown and being a town member. I guess who and how do we recruit businesses to get downtown? Because most of the speech before was about comparing downtown Wakefield to Market Street, which is obviously very difficult. But where the money's being spent is Market Street, the malls, Route 1. And downtown could really use better business recruitment. And I'm just not familiar with who does that, how we do that, and how does the town get involved in who the landlord puts in their building? So I guess what are the steps to improve that?
So I think that, I'm not sure everybody could quite hear you, but I think your question was about what role does the town play in business recruitment? Who does it, or how can you do it? And I think that the public sector probably, and a group like Main Streets, have different roles to play. And business recruitment it's many things, and I think one of the big things is making your downtown really business ready. So some recruitment efforts are place setting, you know, making it a place where people want to go, where businesses would want to land. And so there are a lot of the things that we talked about tonight, the kinds of improvements, I think also make your town ready and make it a place where businesses want to go. So business recruitment is not just going and saying, oh, I've identified a store, let's go talk to him. That's one piece. But I think another piece is making your downtown retail ready or restaurant ready or business ready, a place where somebody wants to go, and addressing the needs of businesses like yours, that this is a town where we want to go. And I think that's part of the role of the public sector. I think also public sector is making it appear that your town is business friendly. and that they're going to work with the town. So you break down any barriers there are. In some towns that we've worked in, I'm not going to talk about Wakefield, I'm not familiar with Wakefield as much, but there has been barriers in sign improvement, zoning, permitting that makes businesses less likely to come here. So I think making it very easy and making it business friendly and giving, maybe some communities have created like an ombudsman sort of role, identifying somebody in town hall that when there's a business, they take them through the process and help them through the process. So I think that's one thing. I think business recruitment information. So in small towns, you don't have commercial brokers like you do in Boston that are taking care of all these properties. And so what you have in towns like this a lot of time are for rent signs out on the properties, or you have some brokers that are mixed residential real estate brokers. But it can be helpful to do business recruitment fact sheets, you know, or information about the town or the market. So that's something that a group like Main Street could do, or town government can do, but that's another role, is to provide information. And then a group like Main Street or the Chamber can also be effective by actually identifying businesses. A lot of times you start with other communities and businesses that have more than one outlet and trying to identify them and contacting them. So those are, you know, some of the roles and programs. There can be some communities have got programs where they are encouraging, you know, there's storefront improvement money or signage money, so they're encouraging businesses to come because there's a financial incentive. I worked in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and one of the interesting things that they did when we were working there, everyone kept talking about they wanted a cafe coffee house, independently owned cafe coffee house, not a big chain. And one of the sites that was vacant, they set up the windows to look like there was a coffee house already in there. And they put tables and chairs in the windows, and they put a signage, and it looked like there was a coffee house there. And they put a big sign that said, "Wouldn't this be a great place for a restaurant?" And they got a restaurant. And so I think sometimes it's creative kind of things like that, you know, that can help and can work with business recruitment. It's targeting the kind of businesses you want to be, you want. It's also being a place where businesses want to go. And whatever we can do in the public sector or business communities or Main Street to get that to happen.
I think Amanda wanted to.
Well, that was a very good, comprehensive answer. So I would just echo, you know, what Peggy's already said, the importance of involving realtors as well. I would just emphasize that, especially since in some of the corridors downtown, there are some of the same realtors that are working with a lot of those properties, making sure that they're on board with the vision and that they understand, you know, where the town wants to go. You can't always, in every case, expect them, you know, their job is to rent out the space, but if they're aware of it and they understand that, you know, the total goal is to really make this a more attractive place so that more and more people are interested in coming and renting out space, that's a real value add. And then I obviously would emphasize the creative piece. Again, there's a ton of artists here who could do some really cool stuff like setting up windows to look like restaurants. It may seem like, oh, that's just, you know, a silly thing, but it can really make a big difference, and it really can, you know, in this sort of market that we're in, it's something that's really interesting and appealing, especially to some of the younger folks, younger families, is that creative.
A lot of people in this room that have talked about, I think that things are really important about the ease of getting to downtown, the ease of getting around downtown, beautification, and whenever those questions have been asked, there always seems to be a problem or a challenge. Well, we need to do a design and a plan, and we have to get approval, and we have to go to the Board of Selectmen, and then we have to do this, and we have to do that. But then on the other side, when we're talking about zoning changes and how I really believe that is a great thing for downtown, you know, that seems to be very easy, and those changes are happening fast, and my instinct is that that is because those things are going to generate revenue for the town, and the things that we're talking about are going to cost money. So I was wondering, number one, is there a way to tie those two things together when you're asking those developers and those developments to come in? What are they going to do for the existing businesses of downtown? And now I forgot my number two. Yeah, so I guess that's, you know, basically, number two didn't matter, I guess. But, you know, just how do we, to do that, oh, I know. So the other thing was that I feel like a lot of the mentality here, and I love these studies and I love what they are saying about downtown and what needs to happen. I agree with a lot of it. But how do you, I guess, not just the existing, not just the new developments coming in and changing things, but can't the focus be more on the people that are downtown all the time? The businesses, the Main Street Initiative, the communities. Almost everything I've seen in the past 6 years has come from the bottom up, not from the top down. Not from the study, not from, or at least there's a collaboration with the people that are actually there doing. Instead of talking, there's doing. So how do we get through this tape of all these things that we've talked about tonight about how hard it is to implement these things and just do it? And I know that most of the things, or a lot of the things that have been done have been kind of bypassed and started really small. And even those flower pots on Main Street, it makes such a difference. And just the businesses that are caring enough to beautify their own storefronts. That's money out of my pocket. That's money. We're not getting money to do that stuff. We're taking money out of our pocket to put our best foot forward. So I'm not really interested in the town or any project or grants giving money to other towns that aren't, other businesses that aren't taking care of themselves, not taking care of their storefronts. Why are they going to get the money? So that's maybe the third question. That's it.
One thing that we are working on is for existing businesses, is a facade program. Working with some of the local banks, and I think Main Street is working on that. That's going to be coming out. We're actually going to put some town money into paying interest on a loan you might take to fix your facade. I know that doesn't affect your business as a great facade, but that is something we're looking at for some of the businesses downtown that aren't inviting like Salt is in Ipswich that you had up there, which is a great place, and the other place down the street. So I get that. You said that zoning changes are easy. I think those of us who go to town meeting would say that that is not easy.
I know that it's easy, but your face changed and you were like,
yeah.
Yay, zoning changes.
Yeah.
As opposed to when other people here were saying, oh, let's do this, let's do that. A couple of you were like, oh, that's hard, that's going to take a long time. How does that meet?
Well, I think it's probably because, we put together $1 million program for some of those Main Street improvements that we were talking about. Extending Center Island down Main Street, doing some bump outs, stuff like that, doing some streetscape beautification. I thought it was a great package. Selectman Dinoco worked very hard on it with me, and we did have a delegation that came from the state. Is Representative Broda still here? No. So he did come. Representative Broda did come, and he was very kind to talk about it. We had business owners there. We had other people there. And the first thing that the state, Jay Ash, said to me was, and that's why he felt me, because I'm reliving that moment, is that we did a tour of the downtown. We walked around downtown. We walked all the way down to farmland, back up down Albion Street. And the first thing he said to me is, I don't know why you need this, you're not that bad. All right? No, I'm telling you, this is true. Paul, raise your hand. Is it exactly what he said?
That's exactly what he said.
Exactly what he said, both Pauls, okay?
I was talking to the gentleman. He did not change his mind.
But he did push us in other directions, okay? And that's what we're trying to do. So some of these changes are hard. I'm hoping that one thing he did do is that he did talk about how you have the spot with the Albion Cultural Exchange. You have a draw, a location to draw people to. Expand off of that. We then got the grant to do this study, so we can then, and the thing about having these studies, and I know it takes a long time, the study leads us to getting other fundings, another way of doing things. And I know that people are very kind to say we're in much better shape than we were financially a few years ago. And that's very true. And a few years ago, we were talking about cutting programs and cutting teachers and things like that, and having nothing to spend on anything. We're in a much better place now. I don't want to ever see Wakefield get back there, so that's why we are very careful. I'm hopeful that with some of the zoning changes, we'll spur development and we'll get more out of it. You're talking about linkage when you say, what can we get out of the new businesses? Believe me, we try to get everything we can. Sore subject for some people, but when Brightview came in, we got about $1 million in upgrades in the downtown for businesses. I know you're laughing too. You don't want to. Yeah, I know. We don't want to talk about that. But you say, what did we get? What did we get? A lot of businesses got their electrical panels upgraded so they can continue to do business in the modern age. That was a huge thing that wasn't going to happen. Was inconvenient for people, I get that. So they're not easy questions. I think I tried to write them down. I get it that we need a lot to do this was a great first step for us. We're going to pull that all together. And I like some of the ideas I hadn't heard. Mr. Barrett here, he left. I hadn't heard his idea before, which is interesting. But I get it. You're right in front of the Rockery. What do you think?
I love it. Someone put our help at where water is.
Yeah, that's the fountain.
Yeah, I was like,
We're going to stay here for a minute. It is 9 o'clock. I promised to get you guys out here in a couple hours. We will stay here to answer some individual questions, but I do thank you. Your being part of the process makes a big difference. So thank you very much. On the 17th, please come on the 17th. That is going to be the MAPC study. That is going to be where we get a lot of this information done and try to work where we came from today. So thank you. That's at the Galvin Middle School cafeteria, right across from where we have town meeting. Plenty of parking.